All right, everybody. So we're all ready. So on the count of 3, we're going to hit play. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, that was lucky. I got kicked out and came right back when you
I
started.
saw. I was worried.
They all match. Oh, Cordelia.
Awkward things to have fall out of your back.
Wait a second. Is Giles' last name Giles,
Last
or is his
name,
first name Giles?
Last name.
Oh,
Last
so
name.
what's his first name?
Rupert.
Rupert Giles. Got it. I thought it was Giles, so then I thought it was Giles.
Giles. Like Duran.
Professor Xavier moment there.
Wasn't she the principal in 90210? Am I wrong about that? Anybody know? Maybe I'm wrong. Diana's not here.
I can check it out. That was the woman who was the judge for Luke against Anna.
The one that read Lorelai's character reference.
Correct.
Oh, Willow has a Scooby-Doo t-shirt on. How fitting. I've been liking Willow lately.
Cordelia ran over someone with her bike.
Cordelia probably ran over somebody with her bike and then insulted them and made it their fault.
I mean, that's kind of what she said. For once, the locker room is well lit.
Either those lockers are short or this man is giant.
Yes, she was in 24 episodes of 90210.
Thanks, Sherry.
Yep.
Gross.
Why does no one ever run?
What'd you say, Liv?
I said, why does no one ever run? But you just go, oh my gosh, it's floating. Let me crouch and let it hit me in the face. It's never like, oh my gosh, I should like leave this area immediately. I don't know. I don't know, man. Like, you got feet? Woo, run away.
They're not smart enough.
I guess so, man.
we wouldn't have as many TV shows if people acted responsibly and with common sense. It's like
So this one's a monster of the week.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Veronica.
Veronica.
Really far away.
Can I get a timestamp?
5:20.
5 minutes, 19 seconds.
The credits just end.
But yeah, Veronica, I agree with you. It's fight, flight, or freeze. Like some people just freeze it.
I'm also surprised a lot of parents have taken their kids out of the school where a lot of people seem to just like mysteriously die.
It seems like a one high school town though.
I would move, bro. I don't care.
What are you talking about? Nothing ever happens there ever.
Sure. Okay.
Well, that's what they all say. They just ignore everything.
This week.
Is that like a foreshadowing thing or something? Like, jeez.
I love Snyder this week.
Does that count as a partial acknowledgement, John?
What?
I'd say so.
Wait, what?
Snyder said there's no dead kids in the school, and then he's added this week.
Oh,
And if Mitch looks familiar to anyone, he's been on quite a few different TV shows. But All My Children, he did a stint on Dawson Creek and Sweet Valley Heaven, and then he did a bunch of one-offs on shows too.
I like her outfit this time. And her skirt is so long.
I know,
do-
for once, it's not like
I like
90% leg,
boots. I like her boots. That's my girl Nancy.
I would have laughed.
Vampire slayage. I like that. Am I the only one who's completely confused by what's going on here?
Not at all.
There's formed any theories yet, John?
No, I'm confused. I'm confused what that flashback thing was. I'm confused by this.
Don't sue. That's hilarious.
Mm.
Ooh, good theory, Veronica.
Ooh, I wonder if we have another witch.
Oh, yes, please.
I mean, if it's an invisibility cloak, that'll be the second thing that Harry Potter got from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
And the worlds collide.
What was the first?
Voldemort.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Oh, I totally get what a Scooby-Doo shirt is like. Hilarious now. That's fantastic. You should get a fire extinguisher and like sprayed at the notes, you know, like if they're invisible, when it show up on them.
I would 1000% do that.
Oh, hey.
Like that totally scared me.
Do you think Twilight stole that from Buffy?
For sure.
Woo, yeah.
So he probably has it. Or I guess he knows something about it. Angel has like 2 facial expressions. And it's mostly just like plain dead face.
He's a very pensive man.
Apparently so.
So that's the first time that Giles has met Angel.
Yeah.
You know, I actually heard a theory. Oh, I love her.
These flashback scenes are very narratively confusing.
So is she the invisible girl?
Why are they confusing?
Just the way that they're placed, I don't really understand how they like flow with the narrative. I don't know where they're placed in time. I don't know how they relate to the scenes before and after.
Okay. That's okay. I think I felt that way the first time I watched this episode.
Like, for example, you know, the scene between Cordelia and what's the other girl's name?
Harmon.
And Harmony. And then it's suddenly this flashback that was the same basic scene or a scene like it at a different time. It just didn't really make any sense.
I read this theory that the backing of mirrors used to be made out of like silver or something, and that's why vampires couldn't see themselves. But since they changed the metal by mirrors, they probably could see themselves like.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, that is the way mirrors were created. There was this like sort of like light film of silver behind glass that created.
Because it was like a pure metal, so they
Mhm.
couldn't see. I read that recently, and I just thought about that with the whole cabinet.
That
thing.
makes
So-
that makes a lot of sense.
But Lily, at this one, they don't see themselves in anything that reflects because that was just plain old glass that they were looking.
Yeah.
Well, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get where you're going, but
These are also very different durations of vampires than I think we've ever seen before. So kind of makes sense that that would also be very different.
The creepy chorus.
did you hear them talking about the girl, John?
Mm-hmm.
I know we were talking about part of that. That's why I was asking.
We found a weird attic area in our high school as well. Didn't have like a little bed and stuff in it, but it was kind of creepy.
In our art
Oh,
building
no.
in college, there were all kinds of weird little rooms that were kind of hidden. It was bizarre. Oh, she did.
Eh. Why didn't she
Oh.
just
No,
Why didn't she just rip the bag with her own hands? Just like grab the bag and just rip it open. I mean, like. That's funny joke. That's a funny bit of writing, I think.
Willow Road. Have a great summer.
I love that. It's very astute, in regards to like high school. It's like the equivalent of like an elementary school kid who doesn't get anybody to sign their cast.
That was a very dramatic, pound on the back.
Well, he's realized something, Lily. He's going to explain stuff to us.
Shocked Xander raised his hand.
I mean, it's
I
an
don't
interesting
remember the name
time.
of this actress, but I've loved her in everything I've ever seen her in.
Clea Duvall.
Oh, that's right.
I love how they're turning this sort of idea of being invisible in high school into an actual monster, which is cool.
Do you get the flashbacks now?
No, I mean the flashbacks still are the flashbacks I still think are completely weird and oddly placed.
And
But,
why
you
are
know.
the flashbacks in like sepia tone?
Because it's the past. So it's like,
I mean, I guess I'm trying to emphasize that it is the past rather than I guess they're trying to emphasize that it is a flashback in the past. Because normally in some shows when they do flashbacks like that, they don't change the tone. Some do, not really.
yeah. So John, I think the point of the flashbacks and where they're inserting them is Marcy's remembering the last time she might have been standing with those two and they completely ignored her.
Yeah, but wait, Marcy is remembering them.
Yeah, sorry, Marcy, that's what.
Yeah, but Marcy's not in the scene. That's sort of the thing that makes it so weird. You know?
But maybe,
is Marcy.
maybe she is in the scene.
Yeah, she is in the
Yeah,
scene
I
and
just-
she acts on it.
She pushed Harmony down those steps. She was
Right.
right there.
Right. It's just, there's just something about it that just is weird. And maybe on second viewing, all of that makes more sense, but it seems so abrupt. Those flashbacks would be from the perspective of somebody, but you're given really very little clue until afterwards that there was somebody actually there.
Oh, Cordelia.
I was really hoping they would just be like, no, you're crazy, and just take care of it without her.
Buffy's looking very Daphne in this scene. So this is an episode, I guess, is painting Cordelia in a little bit of a different light.
I still think she's just like the worst. I do not care if she got that.
Yeah, they're just giving her a little.
I agree with Lily. I hate her.
How much would I bet that's her bait?
I feel like this is some kind of elaborate distraction. Like she's drawing them away.
She's trying to break up the Scooby Gang.
Yeah.
Good call.
It's very shaggy like.
Roll.
Ouch. Oh.
Oh, I know what she's doing.
It's just making you secretly happy too.
She's being psychotic, Kat.
I kind of like it. So she's not doing exactly what I thought she was going to do. I thought she was going to take Cordelia's face because, you know, she's invisible and she needs a face. So why not take the pretty one?
Wow, Kendra. I kind of love it.
It's network TV. Let's remember, it was network TV. Look who's back.
Hey!
Angel and his wife, Peter. and his leather jacket.
I don't think that's the leather coat. I think that's that satiny whatever one.
Yeah, like crushed velvety.
That was cool when Buffy stood up into the light. Oh, this is a cool shot.
Yeah, I love this shot.
This is a cool shot. Slow motion too. That's real slow motion.
I love it when they show us the skills of the Slayer.
Oh my goodness, this is really cool.
Glorious spidey senses.
And that was, oof.
With some random indoor wind. Gotta love it, man.
Did you guys notice these two on campus earlier? Standing by the trees, watching the happenings.
Yes.
That was really cool. That's like, I mean, so this was back when sorry, I'll say it in
I do not trust that they aren't going to use her as a weapon at all.
They are totally going to use her.
She tells them they're creepy.
Did this just like turn X-Files all of a sudden?
Those guys were on campus earlier, John. I don't know if you
Definitely.
noticed them standing around. But they were on the campus during this episode. Kind of in the background every so often when things were happening.
I thought Cordelia hired bodyguards.
Making Cordelia likable.
Oh, Xander shirt again.
I really love Willow's outfit.
She's not quite likable yet.
This is very X-Files.
Even the music.
They're
Yes.
100% gonna like do weird alien tests on her.
Oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding.
There's a bunch of them.
I wish she had accidentally sat on someone because she can't see them.
That would have been awesome.
Oh my goodness.
And the other invisible
evil
people,
X-Men.
the other invisible people.
Oh my goodness. But did you see what they turned their page to? Assassination and
kidding.
infiltration.
You're absolutely kidding,
Love it.
bro. Of
Of
course.
course.
It's the government. I don't.
It's
trust them.
just it's very X-Files.
I'm sure it's a nod to that.
Yes, for sure.
Was that because X-Files was on at this time, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, for
Okay.
sure. Yeah. I mean, it was running at the same time. So it's definitely like it's definitely a nod to like conspiracy theory, government cover up, weird X-File type projects, etc.
Maybe this
Um,
answers
Also,
part of
X-Files.
what happened.
It feels a little outside of the show's genre.
Maybe that's how some of the stuff gets explained that we don't hear about.
Yeah,
later.
maybe. I don't know how I feel about it.
I think it's just a nod to the
That
X-Files more than
scene,
anything.
that was really cool. That moment where the Slayer kind of just suddenly gets into the Slayer zone was cool. That was a cool moment. I would like to see more of that kind of stuff. That's over cranking the film, right? So that slow motion, and it was like ramped up. So that means that like it goes from normal speed into slow motion and then out of slow motion, which is a really cool cinematic technique that now is done digitally mostly. You just like the cameras can do it on their own, and or you can do it with in post-production with a variety of like effects plugins and whatnot. But back then was done manually through like just speeding up the film inside, because the film is running through the camera at a very particular speed. And if you then increase the speed that the camera is capturing those images, what will then be projected will be slow motion. So the faster the film is going through the camera, the slower the actual projected version of it will be. So hence over cranking, you're going faster, and then you slow it back down
That's cool.
to the appropriate speed that you would have, right? Because if it's going through the camera at a certain speed and then you project it at 24 frames per second, then of course if it's going at a faster speed, that means that it's capturing like the movement, more of the movement is being captured across that film, which means that when you then project it at the same speed, you're seeing more things happening within that time period, hence slow motion, right? Like if you're seeing the action for a longer period of time, then you're seeing it in slow motion. And so it's just cool that that kind of stuff, which we see in film all the time now, because we live in an age of like digital effects and all kinds of like really flashy stuff. But it's cool to just appreciate that like back then in the 90s, they to achieve like just a little moment like that, which is powerful. It's like a powerful moment because you haven't seen it, like you don't see effects like that often. That would have been achieved manually with the camera.
And I always like those moments because I consider those we're seeing a little bit of the skills of the Slayer that people don't get to see. And I think she took the look, listen, and learn, listening to heart there in that moment.
Yeah, it's the first time I think that we've seen like the Slayer like feel a little bit like a Jedi, you know,
Yeah,
or
for
feel a
sure.
little bit like she's on the path to greatness. Up until now, it's just like, you know, Buffy's just been a badass in any scene, right? Like she's just like flipping and kicking and just beating people up. But you haven't really gotten the sense of like a Padawan who is like learning and getting better and becoming and will one day be a master, you know. And this was like just a little snapshot of where the character is going, and you know, and what the character can do, you know, in very specific situations like this.
Yeah, like I remember the exact moment when I saw this the first time, because this is my favorite shot of the first season.
Yeah.
But I remember watching it being like, oh wow, she's like she's honed in right now. She's listening and like using whatever, you know, yeah, like you said, like it's the first time we've seen her do that. And I was just in awe. Like I rewound my videotape 1,000 times to watch that one shot.
Like you, so, it's interesting to like think if Buffy was made today, you know, if it was made today, like how would they do a moment like that? And I think that they probably what was somebody gonna say what they think?
I think Anna is trying to
actually
in and out.
They're talking about redoing that.
Say again.
Oh, so she's saying that there's talk of doing another Slayer type show, but not Buffy specifically.
Right.
There's been talk out there.
Oh, that's cool. I think they'd probably do it. They'd probably do it kind of similar to what we're seeing in some of these like Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, like when he gets his Spidey sense, right? Like they'd probably do something, you know, kind of VFX heavy with like, you know, hearing something, feeling it, and react and whatnot. But this is just so simple, you know, it's just so simple, but it's like a really beautiful and like just achieved through lighting and a very, very old classic effect that's been done in film. Like they've been able to do that in filmmaking since like turn of the century.
Well, and the way that they had her costumed or dressed, the scarf, her hair up and all that really gives that shot an effect too, because I think it was Lily who said, where did the wind come from? But really that's just her movement, isn't it? In a way, maybe they put a little wind into it, but it's supposed to give you the idea that she's just kind of
creating wind.
Yeah. It's just I don't know,
cool.
I just like it. And I like any time that they kind of give us a little bit of that, because I feel like as Buffy's kind of learning more about herself, I mean, in season 1 here, she just kind of comes in and she's not really into doing this, and she doesn't want to in the beginning. And as she's going and she's starting to kind of get better at what she does, we get little glimpses of things here and there.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I like about how they develop her character.
Well, I hope that they develop more of it, and that she becomes better and more skilled, and it's not just backflips and spinning roundhouse kicks, you know, that it like she starts to get like really like just hyper skilled.
We also get a glimpse of like how people perceive her, because Cordelia knows where to go, even though she's completely ignored her, even though weird things have happened, and
she knows she's the person to talk to.
That's right. She knows who to go to when in trouble. And so that's kind of a glimpse into what's going on with the school. Like they're not completely blind to what's going on.
Right.
Yeah, like the other students, and they know Buffy is the person to go ask about something.
Yeah, like they know that she's helped out. They might not know why, but she always seems to kind of be there for Cordelia in season 1 when Cordelia needs her. So it's yeah. And I like how she thanked her at the end, but then she just went back to her superficial self.
Yeah. I think that I could do without a return this character, of this like of the bad-
Marcy?
the Marcy character, or a return to like invisible assassins, you know, in the series. It wasn't a high up on my list episode in regards to like the actual the
You don't-
thread.
You don't want to go into government and assassination and infiltration?
No, not really. And certainly not like invisible ones. It's you know, seeing characters like getting like invisible punched, you know, and stuff, and like kind of just be flying back, or getting like, you know, and hearing that like, you know, as they're like getting hit and stuff. It's kind of a little goofy.
You'd rather have the ventriloquist dummy back.
Yes, I'll take Sid any day of the week for sure. I love Sid. I want to know. I mean, wow.
John, you realize Sid's gone though. He took care of that monster and he's gone.
Yeah, I know, but I want him back anyway. I want a flashback scene. Like, so if this new Slayer show that's resurrected, if the Slayer show does happen, my hope is that it focuses on the Korean Slayer from like the 30s, and we get some Sid in there. Or at least like there's some flashbacks that take us back to the 30s, and we meet this Korean Slayer, and therefore we get to also get to hang out with Sid a little bit longer.
You never know. Hey, what do you think
Sid
about?
was cool.
What do you think of the taste of mythology? We didn't get much of the mythology.
I liked it. The scene with Angel was fun, was cool. The scene where Angel like pops up out of nowhere and saves them at the last minute was a little
Well, that's I think they set up that to happen because he was going to go get the codex for Giles, so he had a reason to come back
Right.
to school. So he wasn't really out
Still
of
felt
nowhere
a little-
so much.
it still felt a little like
Yeah, but I think that was their
little
excuse.
place,
I think
little
that's
rivalry.
why they brought him in at the beginning of this episode. He meets Giles, they make an agreement, and then he has a reason to come back.
Yeah, why was
But-
he there? Why was he there to meet with Giles?
Well, he said that he heard, you know, he could feel and hear that things were beginning to happen. He didn't know what. And then they started talking about the Codex, the book that Giles
Yeah,
said was about the Slayer's last days. So
Yes, I definitely
Yeah,
got that. I'm just
he's
trying to
avoiding
understand
Buffy.
why was he there? Like what
He's
brought
avoiding
him?
Buffy. He's just avoiding.
He's avoiding Buffy.
period. He wants to give them information, but he doesn't want to talk to Buffy because he's trying to avoid her. He went there to talk to Giles to let him know that there's something going on and to see if Giles knew anything about it.
And that something going on was Marcy.
no,
No,
no.
he says there's other things going on. So he's not talking about Marcy because when Giles said that that's what he's dealing with, but that's not in my wheelhouse
Oh,
kind of thing.
got it. So it was like about the master and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think he was trying to like talk to Giles to see, like, give him a little bit of information, saying something's happening now, like kind of give him a little nudge. But then they started talking about books, and then Giles mentioned the Codex, and then he's like, I can get it. So
Right.
gave him a reason to come back.
Yeah.
But obviously, like
Yeah, a little bit of a thin,
something
a little bit of a
like-
thin scene. A little bit of a thin scene. I'm like even you explaining why he was there and whatnot. It's still like the coolest part of the
You were
scene.
just out of this episode because, like, if if it was a more interesting episode and more Angel-esque, you would have been more interested in this. Because
Probably.
the mention of the Codex, and then it's the mention.
No.
It has
So
to
that
do with
part-
It has to do with the end of Slayer days.
Yes, that
That's
part was
important.
cool. That part was cool. That part was cool. All of the Codex stuff was really cool. All the stuff about these other books, and I can get a hold of that stuff. That was kind of cool. It's just like how we got there. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
how we got there seemed to be a little just sort of out of nowhere. You know, it just felt like I said, like kind of writery, kind of written in, and it reminds me a little bit of the scenes early in the season with Angel that I had an issue with, where it's just like guy pops out of nowhere and just has some information, you know, and it just doesn't feel active, and it doesn't feel like it, you know, it just doesn't feel like it's a part of the episode. And
He didn't have much information though. He was more. I
no,
think he
and
was,
that's and that
I think he
makes
was trying to find out what Giles knew to try and put things together, but Giles still didn't know anything. I like the scene where I like the way he comes in though. The same thing you do, where Giles knows somebody's there, and because we're dealing with the invisible person, he thinks it's that, and it turns out to be Angel right behind him. And I like that Angel finally gets to meet Giles face to face. And you can see Giles is a little scared when he realizes who it is, and then realizes maybe he shouldn't be, but he's still kind of scared.
Yeah, his whole expression the entire scene was kind of like, do I turn my back on you or not?
Do I trust this guy? Buffy tells me he doesn't eat people anymore, but I'm not quite sure about this because he's read up on him, so he knows what he was like. And I think it's just the little subtleties. It's what I like about the scene. It's the first time they actually meet each other. I mean, he's only ever heard about him, Buffy's talked about him, but he's never really met him. And so it's just kind of.
No, I definitely agree with you that this episode is a little thin for me. It's not one that I revisit, but definitely that scene with between Giles and Angel, I would rewatch it when you're, you know.
Well, I mean, all of the stuff that I think, all the stuff that you mentioned, that I'm guessing you like the most about that scene, I also found interesting. I mean, when he started talking about those books, I was like, ooh, like, you know, this is cool. Let's find out more about it. It's just more how the scene is placed into the narrative. This is the issue that I've had this season with the Angel character, is that I just feel like they are so, they just feel clunkily, is that a word? I don't know. They feel clunky, you know, in terms of how they're actually placed into the story.
Forced.
Yeah.
Yes, they feel forced, they feel writery, they feel like we just need this to happen because we need you to have this information. Now, don't get me wrong, the information that we got in this episode was interesting, but there are other ways to give you that same information that I just think has a bit more finesse and is more aligned with what's actually happening in the rest of the episode, you know, and I just didn't think that this one did a good job of that. But the information, certainly very interesting. I want to know more. It definitely gets me thinking more about the largeness of the canon and the world and the mythology and the lore.
We also learned that Angel knows more about things because he knew how to find the codex. He knows about these other books. He's aware of them. He knows that they've existed. He might know where some of them are when Giles doesn't. So it kind of makes you think, okay, he obviously has been around a long time and he knows stuff, but why does he know this stuff?
Right.
You know, was he part of the reason these things went missing? You know, how did he know where to find that? Stuff like that. It's just, to me, that's one of the things that I learned about Angel in this episode, is that you realize he knows more than just whatever's happening with the Master, because he could talk to Giles. Giles mentioned something random, and all of a sudden he knows about it.
And that makes sense. That makes sense based on the last episode with him, where we learned that he's like really old and he's been going, you know, he's like lived through these different historical periods and stuff. So, you know, it's not super surprising that he would be like, that he would have a lot of knowledge within this, like, you know, broader like Slayer lore, vampire lore. He's even talked about by the Master as having been like, you know, a very special vampire within like vampire lore. So that kind of stuff all makes sense.
So why does he have the books about the Slayer?
I mean, he doesn't have them.
Well, he doesn't have them.
But he knew where to
I was going to say, he seems to know like how he can get his hands on them. He's like knows that they're misplaced. So, you know, I got the sense that he would know how to get them. The question is if they were misplaced, like, and they're like in Europe somewhere, like if he shows up in like the next episode and he's like, I got your book for you. Like, then my big question mark would be, where was that book?
He gave him the book at the end of this episode.
Oh, that's right. He did. All right. So then there you go. I'm like asking that question now. Where did he get that book? Was it in the
Right,
United
did
States?
he
Was it in
have
the
it?
United States? Was it in the United States? Was it in this town? If it was in this town, okay, makes sense.
Or
You went
was
and
it
grabbed
already in
from
Angel's
a-
possession? That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, but that would be really coincidental. Like I have that in my personal collection of books. You just
Not
happen to
necessarily. Not if he was somebody who was so evil that he was hunting slayers, so he was like filching the
I know,
books
but-
from the Watchers.
Yeah, I know, but that's
learn about
coincidental.
'em.
That's still coincidental that he mentions the book, the very book that Angel happens to have in his own collection. I don't
Maybe
know.
it's in a
I
bunch. I'm
think-
just throwing things out there.
Then the other one is that
Just
it's
pretend.
that it's not in this town, that he went somewhere outside of the town. But then then I'm like, wow, he traveled some distance and he didn't seem to change. And look, he's wearing the same outfit that he was wearing before.
Maybe he's
You know,
like
if you're like
Einstein,
no, he went to some place in Ireland, and got it there, then I'm really like, whoa, dude, you only own one outfit. And you also somehow have like a connect on, on like a Concorde ticket or something, because you just like within an hour had that book. The only real possibility then is that he owns that book, like he had that book in his own personal collection, which would go against what he said, that he said it's been misplaced, I guess.
Or the
unless
master had
that's
it. He knew
his
where the
way of
master
lying.
hid it.
Right, which would then be like, did he hide it in this town?
Well, the master's been trapped in the town for 60 years minimum,
Right.
which means he was there before that, so it's very possible. I don't know.
You're working hard.
Okay,
You're working hard on this. You really want it to work.
I'm just saying, I can't believe Kendra thought that Marcy was going to cut Cordelia's face off so she'd have a face.
Well,
again.
I mean, she needs a face.
Well, I have to be honest, if I didn't already know a couple of spoilers, like for example, we talked a little bit about like the actress and some of the actress's own problems, without getting too deep into all of that. I know she's in later seasons, so I know she can't have her face cut off. I also feel pretty confident that she's going to be a vampire, and I feel like my confidence there is also something I was spoiled in some way about that. So if I didn't feel spoiled, I would have thought that she was going to get her face cut off, just like Kendra. But then I also would have been like, wow, like that's intense for network television. But then I would have been like, but they ate a principal, so
Yeah. And Anna sent me a message and she said she would jump in and say so herself, but Clubhouse hates her right now.
what is going
The
on?
first time she watched it, she thought the same thing. So I am not alone.
I know you're not alone. It's just you said it out loud. It just cracked me up because I was thinking that would be so gross. Very Silence of the Lambs, even maybe. Or
Yeah.
But
just disgusting.
But I do feel like, I don't know why, but I feel like something this season confirms my suspicion that Cordelia will be a vampire before the end of this. Or maybe that's just my own belief that everyone is going to be a vampire at some point. But I do feel like Cordelia is going to continue as an important character in the show. And this episode seems to also suggest it in this, because of the fact that she's also been kind of humanized a little bit more. Like, she up until now, she really was like a cardboard cutout of that type of a mean girl. And this episode, they kind of tried to give her a little bit more dimension, while still keeping that, that mean girl thing. They gave her a little bit more humanity and dimension and humor. That tells me that she'll be on the show for at least 3 more seasons.
And they
not
showed us
till
that
the end.
she's maybe kind of smart at times too.
Yes.
Hey, by the way, John, I got a back channel message, which I thought was kind of funny.
But she's
Somebody
gonna
said,
be
I
vampire.
can't believe that
She'll be a
John
vampire.
gave away a spoiler. And I said, well, he may not have. He might not be right. He may be. You just don't know yet.
Oh, who was that? Who said that?
I'm not telling you. You said it, but
Uh-oh.
somebody thinks you're giving away spoilers when you're talking about Cordelia, and it just kind of cracks me up because, you know,
But I don't know for sure. I don't know for sure, but what I do know is like I do feel like I was at least spoiled that she's on the show for more than this season.
I don't think she's going to become a vampire, but I think she's going to become one of them. Like join
Oh, she's
the
gonna
group.
become one of the Scooby Gang.
Yes,
I think
like
she's-
she's
I
gonna
think she's
get
gonna be a vampire.
tired of the popular life, and I mean, because we saw she's lonely and it's a job and she's growing tired of it, and I think she'll be integrated into their gang somehow.
I think I
I don't think she'll
feel,
ever give
well.
up the popular life.
Should we do a kernel? Should we do a kernel bet, Kendra?
I don't
Should we-
have any kernels right now, so I can't do that.
Harvest, so you guys can get some kernels.
I spent all my
Um,
kernels on the Mentos.
I just
The,
love that you think of most of the characters are going to be vampires.
Well, I mean, I think that Giles, I think that Rupert Giles will be a vampire. He just seemed his
You just want his facial
His
structure
fa-
to be have prosthetics on it.
his facial structure is it's made for vampire prosthetics, and so is Cordelia's. Both of them have a vampire just written all over their faces. The principal, he's I don't know if I'd say vampire, but definitely some sort of a demon prosthetic.
Sandra has big ears that stick out to the side. Goofy looking. You're talking about the principal.
When I was
Yeah.
watching the first episode, it was actually really random because I came in because Chris and Gina were like rewatching one. So I started the first episode and I was literally like, I think she's just gonna become friends with all the vampires. And they got roasted really hard for that. But you know, I guess I've
Xander
seen too many poppy sort of vampire stories.
Xander seems like he's going to be a sort of third act vampire. He's like a climax vampire. He's somewhere in like season 6 or 7, maybe or I'd say probably 7. You know, he's vampire like later part of season 7.
I am loving these predictions.
Me
Um,
too.
Whereas Giles could end up getting vampire status like as early as season 5, season 6.
And then he'll just
Cordelia,
throw
I'm
it in the library.
thinking Cordelia somewhere around season 4, vampire. And Willow, I don't think is going to be a vampire.
Oh,
Well, I don't think
Regina's
it's gonna be
predicting that Xander becomes a vampire and Buffy has to slay him. That's Regina's prediction.
Well, I
That's
still
just
have
because
the.
Regina doesn't like Xander.
I
Stop,
still have
Regina.
the prediction. I still have the prediction that Buffy is going to kill Angel. She's going to stick a stake in him right after they've smooched.
Wow.
So it's going to be like a smooch, a beautiful moment. They look into each other's eyes and then stake in the heart.
Yeah,
This
you
is
said that
all
in
so
like around
specific.
episode 4 or 5. I wrote that down. I have. I'm forever
You gonna give us the
stenographer.
timestamp, too, Jen?
What's that?
You gonna give us the timestamp to when you think it's gonna happen to you, or
No, I don't know. I'm not. I don't have those specifics, but
He's getting a
but
Game
I-
of Thrones feel. That's why.
yes. It's very red wedding. It's going to be a very red wedding moment. But of course, I don't know how that in any way connects with the television show Angel, which I know is a spin-off of this show. So I really don't know.
Maybe
but
the
that's how I'm
television
feeling.
show's a prequel to this.
Ooh, that could be it.
I was
That could
gonna
be
say
it.
maybe it's a prequel. That's all.
Yeah, or I don't know, maybe maybe she sticks the stake in his heart thinking that he's going to die and he doesn't. And then it's like, oh my gosh, what's up? And it's like, oh, you have a soul, and souls keep you from dying from a stake.
Oh my gosh, this is so specific.
Well, that would be a very interesting mythology for sure.
And then he's just like, yeah, but I have a stake in my heart right now. And she's like, oh, sorry.
I want to watch your vampire show, John. Can you write one of these?
I only with a comedy. I want this to be a comedy.
I would love to see Cordelia become a vampire because I think it would be torturous for her, and I think she deserves that.
Yeah, not be able to see like look in the mirror.
Yeah, and like have to drink blood and only come out at night.
Not be able to look in the mirror.
I feel like
Her hair
she'd
would
end
be
up serving the master because he would tell her, oh, if you do this, this, and this, I'll restore you and you'll be beautiful forever. And she'll just serve him and then he'll kill her eventually. I feel like that's what would happen if she turned into a vampire.
I was really hoping she would be tortured a little bit more tonight. I was so deeply disappointed.
At what point are we all at what point will it be that we're all watching and don't know what's coming next?
Mid season 2-ish, towards there.
Are you talking about all of you who have not seen the show?
Yeah, all of you, like just everybody here. Like, at what point will we all be just watching together and like week to week we just don't know what's happening, what's going to happen?
I mean, I've never seen anything. I have some spoilers that not really spoilers, but just I know about certain characters. But other than that, I know pretty much nothing. So
I think when you get into a longer season, then they can actually like formulate a more cohesive storyline. The season 1 is like some of these episodes don't seem to have anything to do with others.
Nothing.
that was so weird.
Yeah, I'm so glad the last one for the season is Thursday. I'm so ready.
Prophecy girl.
Huh?
Yeah. But I will say too, now that like I so brought that up so slightly. John, what you're mentioning about, like Angel coming in this episode, like I think this is around the time when they were finally kind of approved for a second season. So up until now, like they had finished writing the season, but they hadn't gotten a final word on a season 2. So Angel coming in trying to give like something to Giles for the last episode, which is next, it was kind of gonna be like a wrap up, So that's kind of why I felt like he was kind of thrown into this episode. But yeah, this is around the time when it was kind of like final that they were getting another.
That's cool.
You know what's funny? When I was watching the first episode, obviously never seeing anything about the show, the first vampire pops up and I'm on the Clubhouse with Chris and Regina and I go, oh my gosh, a werewolf just attacked somebody. And they're like, that's a vampire. I'm like, no, it's not. It is absolutely not a vampire. That is a werewolf. I was like so floored by like this vampire that looked exactly like a werewolf. And I was like, what?
You're just not used to
But
vampires
I'm
changing
told
their
the makeup
faces.
gets better.
Yeah, the vampires in Buffy are definitely more the like they're more like monstrous than your Anne Rice vampires are way more just like
Gorgeous.
Pretty.
they're just like they're more like attractive and super pale and just have sharp teeth.
Or
Almost
like
canines.
the true blood vampires, they were all pretty and
Exactly,
like the boys were hot. They just had things.
Twilight,
Yeah.
they sparkle.
Ew.
Yeah.
I like the
Twilight.
Vampire Diaries sort of design where they like got like the black eyes and like distorted features when they
Yeah, but they still
had
look
their
pretty.
things out.
Yeah, or like being
You know,
human
good.
too.
Whatever. Still, I thought it was a werewolf.
In the show, I think I mentioned this before, the television show The Witcher, which is based
That show is so amazing. Oh my god.
yeah, it's based on a Polish fantasy series, The Witcher, by the same name. And it's got like this really, for those of you who don't know the concept of the show, it's like the Witcher, the main character, the Witcher, he's a monster hunter. He's like a special breed of person that's like he's kind of a like sorcerer / warrior, and his like main task, as others like him are, is just hunting monsters. So the series has this really complex, and the book series has this really complex monster lore with all these different classifications of monster types, like the insect monsters, the dragon type monsters, the demon type monsters, the undead type monsters, and they have a whole classification of vampire type monsters, and it's really cool. In their lore, vampires are not just like one type thing. There's like a whole broad like spectrum of them, from these like almost like monstrous, just they don't even look like people, creatures that almost seem mindless, to your very classic person that you wouldn't know is a vampire until they're about to kill you. And it's really fun. And the series doesn't do it that much. They've got like the Netflix series has some episodes that are kind of monster of the week type episodes, where they're like one-off and they're not really part of the larger mythology. But what's kind of cool about it is it's one of the only fantasy series that I've seen that has a little bit of a detective procedural aspect to it, because the character is like is a monster hunter. So part of what he does is tracks monsters and figures out clues. So there's a little bit of a mystery going on, like, something's happening. I'm trying to figure out what's killing these people in this town. And, it has a little bit of a detective procedural show quality to it, but like mixed with like Game of Thrones, which is.
And for those of you who haven't seen the show, he is not spoiling anything about the TV show. I've seen it.
Oh, not
He's
at all.
not spoiling anything.
Yeah, there's
about the
nothing.
actual
Yeah,
show.
there's nothing about that. It's just like the general. It's just the
You
general
learn in the
concept.
first episode that he is a hunter of monsters. So what he's telling you is not going to spoil The Witcher for anybody who wants
Yeah.
to watch it.
Yeah, and
Henry Cavill.
yeah, it's the one with Henry Cavill, who, by the way, is a huge nerd of The Witcher.
Yeah,
Like
which makes it so much better.
Yeah, he
That's
he
so-
apparently like had read all the books. When he found out that they were casting it, he was basically like, I want that role. Like, that role's mine, And I'm guessing he played the video game too, because
Yeah, he
his
did, yeah.
actual because his actual performance is like has the character from the video games like own vocal patterns and
Grunting
vocal
and
tone
stuff.
and whatnot. It's really fun. It's really cool. He's just like a complete and total geek, and it's it's got a really complex lore and really complex world and a hierarchy and structure of like, not just the monsters, but the different like kingdoms and all of the different, like the elves versus these humans. And it's written by a Polish author. So it has a lot, there's definitely a lot of like 20th century themes going on, like a lot of like the world wars and a lot of like the dark parts of the 20th century, with like Holocaust and nuclear weapons. Like, you can just feel that the writer is inspired by a lot of that sort of 20th century darkness in there, and weaves it in a really interesting way. I'm not spoiling anything, but I really would recommend it. It's a good show. Second season, way better than the first.
Oh my gosh, that finale was
Absolutely.
that got me.
Yeah, second season, you can just see they got more money. They're super confident because the first season was so beloved, and you can just feel the confidence in the writing.
That
And I had no idea about the source material. So like if you're like sort of like spooked to go into something that has like a lot of source material that you've never gotten into, it's still like incredibly enjoyable. Like I had nothing, I never watched the game or read the books, and it was still like incredibly like interesting. Very, very fun to watch. So
you mentioned, like when you were talking about that, and you were mentioning all the different like species of creatures and everything. We never even bothered to ask, is there something that you would want to see here in Buffy that obviously we haven't gotten in the first?
That we haven't gotten.
Yeah, I think you mentioned werewolves once.
Oh, in terms of monsters.
Yeah, in terms of monster. Anybody? Kendra? Lily?
I would like to see like a legit. I wouldn't mind seeing. I don't know if I would say I want to. I mean, I've seen plenty of werewolf fiction. So but I would be interested to see how Buffy deals with werewolf. We've already seen bug monster. Which I didn't like. I know that some people did like it. We've seen a lot of vampire. We've seen witch, like witch monster.
I've got one.
Yeah, what?
I would love to see like a daywalker, which I don't know if that's what they call them in all sort of literature, but like a
You want to
vampire
see
who
Blade.
can walk.
I get it.
Walk in the
No.
sunlight.
Yeah, who can walk in the sunlight? Because I don't know, like in one of my favorite books series, there's something like that. It's very more complex and all that, but
Is it
I would love to see that
Vampire
because
Academy?
it's sort of like a no, absolutely not. No. I would love to see that because like sort of tell us like they're at night and they prowl. But if it's just like some dude in your school, walking around and people are dying during the daytime, it would be more of an interesting mystery because I wouldn't expect a vampire. Just me. I think that'd be cool.
I could do. I mean, I would be interested in. But this is just me. Now I'm just like a little bit more in the fantasy side of monsters, because I recognize that the show is really is more like supernatural monsters. But I would be interested, I guess, in something more like in like the Drachnid class, like some kind of dragony, snaky kind of creature, but
like a golem.
oh, I would be into like you're talking about like the golem from like ancient Jewish myths.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Oh, I'd be into that.
Awesome.
I'd be into like that would be in fantasy would be like considered part of the elemental class of creatures.
Well, that
right?
one and the Lord of the Rings one, I think, is based on the Jewish one, but yeah, like a golem kind of character.
Mm. Yeah, like you're talking about like a big like sort of a clay type giant like clay type creature.
Isn't it like an ancestral protector that comes about?
Yeah,
like,
yeah, they're like guardian type. They're guardian type creatures, and they're typically like placed. In fantasy, they're usually like guarding some very important thing, and they kind of come to life like statues.
Like golems, that my precious.
And she's talking about there's like an
Smeagol
episode of
golem.
Supernatural and Grant with a golem, and they're both very interesting. That'd be fun if they put it in the show. I don't know. They might not.
Wait, Nancy, you're not talking about the snake version of things. You're talking about like Smeagol, the hobbit that turned into the little guy who wants the ring the whole time. I'm confused.
Yeah, Gollum. Well, the character of Gollum in Lord of the Rings, I don't know how much it's related to like the ancient Jewish golem myth.
Yeah, not at all.
But the ancient golem is more like your classic fantasy golem, which is like a kind of clay style like like
Yeah,
brute, like a big,
yeah.
huge, clay type creature that was made and imbued with magical powers to make it come to life. And they're in fantasy, they're usually like kind of guardian creatures that are like guarding some very important tomb or treasure or something like that.
I want more witches, like legit witches, like a coven with like a deep, long history, like the vampire history we're having here. Like, I would like to see that.
And maybe some good witches too.
Yeah. Or some fae. Fae would be interesting.
Devils would be interesting too.
Devils, just straight up devils.
Just straight
Just be like, I want a couple of devils in here. Not deviled eggs, just devils. I'm trying to think. I'm running through the monster Rolodex of D&D monsters through my head. And I'm trying to remember which ones that I like the most. A genie. Let's have a good genie.
A djinn?
A djinn, yeah. A djinn. Let's do a djinn.
Okay.
A Jinn. Let's get a good djinn in there. No?
Well, we got.
There's a whole list now.
Roll for initiative.
Yeah, it's interesting to listen to you guys talk about them all. It's been sitting here thinking in my mind, do we get that? Do we get that? Do we get that?
I have a feeling we're not going to get a lot.
Do we get a unicorn at any point? A unicorn.
What show are you watching? That's what my daughter says when you say things. She's like, what show is he watching?
No unicorns, I guess. No unicorns. Okay. Let's see, what else would I like? I mean, it's supernatural. So really, like, we're limited to witches, demons, vampires, ghosts, shapeshifters, werewolves. I guess you could get a golem in there, but it's got to be scary. Like, I don't know if a goblin. Yeah, goblins would be good. Like a goblin would be for sure. That would be something that I could imagine being something in this. A goblin, an evil leprechaun.
Oh no.
A troll. There we go. Shelly sent me a back channel message. A troll. Let's get a troll under a bridge.
A troll and a leprechaun.
Oh,
I remember leprechaun.
My birthday was Saturday, so when you mentioned the leprechaun thing,
magically delicious.
Oh my goodness, you guys are cracking me up. I just can't say anything at all.
The trolls with the Billy Goat scruff.
And that is actually my cue. I'm gonna head out and go get a little food. I'm hungry.